Good morning, FlatsClass YouTube. Feeling kind of small? Well, that's what today's lesson's about. Small stuff. In fact, recent cold front, I'm challenged today, if you will. I'm drinking coffee in my shop. It's about 5 a.m., so my sense of humor is probably a little bit, it lacks something. Haven't had enough caffeine yet. But when I'm faced with these types of conditions this time of year, I find myself throwing a lot of Ned rigs, a lot of the bugs fishing stuff, like the click shrimp, the 1/8 ounce beastie bugs. Throw a lot of these micro hard baits, like the mini dean and the glass minnows from Mirrolure. That's what gets the bite. The fish are sketchy, the water's clear, it's low, it's a challenge. Well, in the past, I've always caught these fish on spinning rods. I'll just pick up one of my medium lights in here, put my 2000 Vanford on and spool up like some 6 or 8 pound braid and go. Well, I want to be able to throw this stuff on casting gear. And now, believe it or not, because of a system, it's not something new. Bait finesse system, BFS, has been around for quite some time, especially in the sweetwater or freshwater scene. Started off on the west coast of the US and migrated across. And a lot of guys are excited about these new ways to catch fish when they're tough or to make all fish challenging. Well, Brian Dufik of Shimano finally sent me one of these setups. So I have a BFS rod and a BFS reel. Now take a close look. Look how shallow that spool is. I'm going to explain later in this video why it is so shallow and why it's going to help us throw all these little micro baits. So come along with me today, and we are going to go on quite the adventure catching a variety of fish on tiny small baits. But we're going to get big results. Episode of FlatsClass YouTube is brought to you by Aquatraction, your go-to solution for advanced marine flooring. Well, I can tell you my first impression with the BFS Corrado rod and the Corrado BFS reel. I'm impressed how far I can cast. This is just a mini Mirrodine. So it's very small, weighs about 3/16. I can cast it almost as far as I could cast any topwater. It's amazing. To be able to throw finesse baits, are you kidding me? Finesse baits on this little reel? Wow, this is going to be nice. This is going to be real nice. I'm going to have a ton of fun with this one. Oh, let them eat it. Let them eat it. It is so much fun throwing these tiny little Mirrodines to these big redfish. One up. Hear that? This actually has a drag that sounds like a spinning reel. It has so much adjustment. Now this isn't a giant fish, but I'm being careful because I have tiny size 7 trebles on this, but I just fed them. I mean, it is just such a cool bait. We're going to try a Ned rig next, see how well we can throw a Ned rig. Wow,
I mean, it's just so cool to see, you know, a bait caster. Whoa, he's off. A bait caster that can actually throw micro baits. Awesome. I'll give you all the specs and everything in the shop a little later.
Okay, as you can see, I did run down the rabbit hole. I've known about BFS for about a year or so through a bass buddy of mine. And he always asked me if I thought it might be a play in salt water. And my reaction is kind of gimmicky, you know, kind of a geeky, gimmicky thing. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to have a place or if it'll be robust enough to really do what it needs to do for us. So ICAST came, and I was talking with Brian Dufik, who is the Southeast Shimano rep. So had a couple of words with him about it, and it intrigued my interest a little, especially since one of the guys that I follow here on YouTube is the RX Angler out of his channels out of Texas. And he actually did a piece on this, which got me more interested because I'm watching him throw small bugs jigs on this BFS system. I'm thinking, well, maybe I should try this. So I drilled down a little bit more and started watching JP DeRose's channel here on YouTube. And that guy's technical. Let me tell you, he brings geek to a whole nother level. I thought I was into gear. No one is into breaking down the gear like JP DeRose. So if you haven't checked out his stuff, especially if you're a Shimano fan, you need to go over there. Speaking of being a Shimano fan, I am very transparent about this. I am a hired gun for Shimano. I'm here to teach you how to use Shimano products so it can make your experiences in the field much better. See how transparent I am? I'm not trying to be one of these guys that says he's unbiased and then you find out later that all his gear is the other gear. No, I'm honest with you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this Corrado BFS. It's a small reel, very small, almost feels, and I'm gonna try not to break the rod here. It almost feels toy-like in my hand. It's very small, weighs about 6.2 ounces. I'd say it's like a 50 class reel on the Shimano Baitcaster run. But what I really like about it is it still has a decent gear ratio, 8.2, I believe, to 1. It still has 8 anti-rust ball bearings in it, so it's very tough that way. Holds up to about 8 pounds across carbon drag. Remember, this is finesse stuff. We're not needing that 20 pounds of drag that you have in others. Picks up about 32 inches per handle turn and runs about $189 for this reel. So there's a little bit of an investment in it. But the fine-tune braking system that you'll see in this reel is phenomenal. What's cool about it is now you can throw stuff that weighs anything from a 1/16, probably all the way up to probably a half an ounce if you wanted to, but then you'd overload the system. But I like 1/16, that's what I'm playing with this, anything from a 1/16 all the way up to probably about a 1/4 ounce. That's what I'm throwing on this most of the time. And I'm saying a 1/4 ounce, I don't throw a 1/4 ounce. That's when you pick up a jig head that might only be an 1/8 and you add a plastic body to it and all of a sudden it weighs a 1/4 ounce. Remember, total weight does matter in all this stuff. Here's some other things you got to think about. When you're playing around with this stuff, if you've ever had those tough days where you just can't get a bite, but you could get a bite if you threw something this small. It's like a 1/10 ounce Ned rig head with a little tickler body. I mean, this weighs nothing, 0. Well, I can throw it on that. I can throw it a good 60 to 80 feet easily. When you creep up there, if you're a kayak guy, if you're a skiff guy, if you're a wade fisherman, you're going to destroy them on this stuff. It's amazing. How many times have you been in a situation where you're post cold front, crystal clear, fish are so spooky that you need to be able to throw something small that doesn't splat on the water and freak the fish out. And also, if you've got the small fish problem, guys don't like to admit they have a small fish problem, but when you do, this thing makes them all feel big. It's awesome. If you fish a pressured fishery like Tampa Bay, Jacksonville, Florida, places like that where everyone's on the water, it's nice to have a BFS with all these small little baits like mini deans and stuff like that. You can catch a lot of fish. This is a little 3/16 hard bait. Whew. So it's things like that that are really neat about this stuff. And how many times have you ever been in a situation where like, damn, I wish I had a fly rod? I don't say that very often, but there are times when I do say, damn, I wish I had a fly rod. Well, if you've got a BFS system underneath your gunnel, problem solved. Now, I'll come back in a few minutes and tell you what rod I'm throwing this on, but go check out the rest of my little trip here, and I'll be back.
Whoa. Here's a drag going on at this time. Redfish hit the Ned rig. Right up here in these oyster bars. Oh. Now this BFS rod is one of the heavier ones. It's probably like a 4-power if you can consider that heavy. But it's all you want when you catch these reds. Oh man, nice fish. Very nice fish. Got that on the Ned ticklers. Let me see if I can get down here. Take care of this guy. Yeah, these BFS rods, if you can see that there, they're made for this style fishing. They load just about right to throw baits in that 16th to 3/16 range. Is where they're really good. Come on, buddy, play yourself out. So I've got a little 1/10 of an ounce jig here, and I opened it up a little bit because I was pulling hard on them with a little Houdini ticklers, and what a beautiful fish. I mean, gorgeous. That's why you do it. That's why you do it. Off you go, bud. So let's straighten this jig out and let's do that one more time. That was a lot of fun. Or maybe I'll switch up to a bugs. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll fish a bugs for a little while down the stretch. Let's do that instead. Big dust off right here. Little cove, but on the slack water, they like to sit on the outside of it. So I figured I'd give it a couple of casts with the bugs to see if I couldn't pick one up. Tell the water's slack because the dust off isn't moving. It's just staying in one spot. There's typically plenty of current here. It is a good caster for these little tidbit baits. Bites tough, tide slow, pressured zone. It's perfect. Got some nice fish today. This is almost my last stop here before we run in. Just wanted to see if I could pick up one more fish on the ride in. Back here at the ranch house, and I've got to say, super happy with the Corrado BFS. Several reds today, a couple of dinky trout, and a number of other fish that I'm not so proud of, but that's what happens when you're throwing real small baits like the Beastie Bug, the Mini Dean, all those Ned rigs that I was throwing, like the ticklers and stuff. They catch everything. But super satisfied, even impressed with this Corrado BFS rod, which I think is at a higher power than some of the super expensive BFS rods that are probably a little bit more bendy, if you will. This one's got some backbone. I was able to stop some of those bigger reds. I was surprised. And the best part is,
This BFS reel, it makes noise like a spinning reel. It actually has a drag sound. Pretty cool. It's always pretty cool when you discover something new and all of a sudden the light bulb goes on. You're like, I'm going to catch a lot of fish doing this. Well, that's the way I feel about bait finesse systems now. I am sold. I mean, truly sold. All right, some of the stuff I want to cover real quick. Let me give you those rod specs. You guys, I'm just going to show it to you. You can see what I'm using here. This is a Corrado rod. This is made for BFS reels, and it is a Shimano rod. This is kind of toward the stronger actions. I mean, it's probably a 4.5 power rod. It's still medium light, 7'2". It has high power X technology. If you know anything about Shimano and you're buying rods from Shimano, you know that the high power X gives you a lot more fish fighting leverage. It also has crisper actions that deliver nice, accurate, sharp casts. So I really like it. It has an extra fast tip so that when you just flick, out goes the Bugs jig, out goes the Ned rigs. So it's awesome. It really is awesome. And the reel itself, when you look at this BFS reel and it doesn't have any line on it, okay? When you don't have line on it, you're gonna notice that the spool is very, very shallow. You're like, man, what? It's shallow because it's only designed to hold somewhere between 40 and maybe 50 odd yards of line. Yeah, that's it. That's all it holds. So you're not going to be able to put 15, 20, and 30-pound braid on here. You're going to have to use, in my opinion, there's a lot of guys who got opinions. You know what they say about opinions, right? But the opinions of most, and myself, is that if you're going to use 6 or 8-pound mono or fluorocarbon lines, or if you want to try maybe 10-pound braid, you could use 15-pound braid, but 10-pound braid's what I'm using on this. You're probably going to be all right. You're probably going to get about 50 odd yards a line on here. And I'm able to cast it. Remember, that fine-tuned braking system, the way it works is it understands when you're slinging the bait out there, and it slows it down before it hits the water and you overrun the spool. Now, most of the time I'm running this, you'll see a little dial here. And I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. I usually use it on 2 or 3. If you're going to use something, really finessey, you might want to play with the magnets inside, but that's something JP DeRose does a good job of explaining on how you need to do it. For me, the number one thing about the BFS is I love it. It's a new game for me now, and I'm never going to have to say, damn, I wish I had a fly rod today, because I got a BFS under the gunnel, and that's going to make a big, big difference for me and hopefully for you too. Now, speaking of you, I need you guys to subscribe to this channel. That's right. I want you guys to like it, subscribe to it, and hit the notification bell. Tell your fishing buddies. Unless, of course, you don't want them to catch any fish and you want to outfish them. Then be selfish. All right, I'm off to make my next YouTube video. In the meantime, I hope you guys go out, get a BFS or experiment a little bit, and head to the water this weekend and catch them. I mean, really catch them.